Okay. We had a question here, a discussion about is there something special for Jeremiah? And I think you use it's very good to develop this habit as Bible students. Let the Bible help you. Let other parts of the Bible help you interpret the Bible. We know that Jesus told the apostles that the apostle says, "What's waiting for us? What's waiting for us?" And Jesus said, "No one who's left houses or lands or families, they will receive a great reward, and in this life and in the life to come, and persecutions." And then if we go to Acts, we see when Stephen was stoned, it says that he said, we see a picture that Paul paints about Jesus seated on the throne at the right hand of the Father. But when Stephen is stoned, Stephen speaks out, "I see the Son of God, the Son of Man, standing at the right hand of the Father." So when Stephen was stoned, he was received by Jesus standing up. So it's a good question. It's a good question, like what was Jeremiah's reward when he got to heaven? A faithful prophet, what was his reward? I think his reward is great. What he sacrificed in this life, there is a reward that is great. He had a great relationship with God, and that relationship will be evident to us when we are in eternity. That's the great thing about eternity. We'll have total appreciation, but no competition. So it's like everyone will be great in certain ways, and we'll all appreciate the greatness, but we won't compete to get more greatness because the old sin nature will not be a part of us. So jealousy, competition, those kind of things will not be a part of the new life in eternity. But appreciation and joy and revelation will be. And so that'll be a great thing to be a part of there. All right? And like the angels, they had their point in time when they had a choice to follow Lucifer or not. And that rebellion that happened, and now the two-thirds that stayed with the Father and his purpose, they continue in revelation and in service and that kind of thing. So let the Bible, that's a little hermeneutic principle, homiletic principle. Let the Bible help you solve certain issues in the rest of the Bible. Like I like to use one. There's a verse in Proverbs that says, "Scorners set the city on fire," and then we know in the Genesis that Sodom and Gomorrah were burned, and it's like, well, why did God destroy them? Was it just because that they were so much bent in homosexuality and promiscuity? And it's no, they scorned God. They refused the word of God. That's what really was the essence of their sin. Okay, all right, back to Jeremiah. Eternal themes. All right. Now these are the things, eternal themes: judgment, suffering, victory. Okay, and if you believe that this is all there is, then that's a problem. Like if you believe that that's all there is to existence, like this life is all there is, there's going to be a problem. Like you're not going to be able to explain the kind of things that happen in this life to any sense of satisfaction. Because if this is all there is and humanity's left on its own, then we see we're in deep trouble. We see what can happen when smart people get an idea on being bent with power. We see that reproducing itself throughout history. And so there's an eternal theme here. God is judgment. That is his activity towards sin. Truth or consequences. And that used to be an old game show years ago. Bob Barker used to do The Price is Right. Before he did The Price is Right, he did this show called Truth or Consequences. And this is really what God is saying. This is the way things are. If you live according to the design that I have made for the world, if you follow the truth, everything is fine. And everyone says, but if you don't follow the truth, there are consequences. You could suspend your belief in the law of gravity all you want. And you could go up to the new cross and decide that you have created a new frame of reference of religion, that gravity no longer exists. I do not believe in the law of gravity. I can't see it, so I do not believe it. But you're going to find out and feel its effects very soon after stepping off that cross. And it could be tragic. It could be tragic. Like God proclaims the truth. Well, I can't see the reason for that. And then, okay, that's fine. God proclaims the truth. Sometimes he does not explain the reasons why. He does not explain. He's just saying, this is what I'm telling you to do. Believe me that I have your best interest at heart because I am the Father. I am the Creator. Believe my heart. Receive my word. Count it as true. And things will be okay. You are too small, and your brain is too weak to handle all that I have for you. But just trust me, I understand everything. I know the beginning and the end. Or you can live this way. You can come over here and try and enter into a different kind of orientation, live in the knowledge of good and evil, and try and make it that way and suffer the consequences. So judgment is always God's activity towards sin. Violation brings consequence. There's grace, there's mercy, there's forgiveness. And sometimes grace and mercy, forgiveness cannot undo a consequence that you have produced, or I have produced. I could take a few drinks, go for a drive. I could destroy a car. I could ruin someone's life. I could take someone out. And there could be grace expressed to me. There could be mercy given from the family to me. But the consequence is probably jail if I kill somebody. The car is gone. And so judgment is God's activity towards sin. God spells it out for us. He gives very detailed instructions in the books of Moses to the nation of Israel. And so God's activity towards sin is, it's always much more patient than human activity towards sin. We fly off at the handle and we administer swift justice according to our own vengeance. But vengeance that belongs to the Lord percolates slowly, and God doesn't always boil over. God expresses wrath. That's righteous response according to his law. So, all right, so there's God's judgment, and we should never divorce these two. God's expression of judgment is also related to, we think that God does not feel. We are created in the image of God. All of our emotions are also in the person of God. And so when we are wounded, he is wounded. It says that we can grieve the Holy Spirit, we can quench the Holy Spirit. You can tell someone to speak to the hand. You can tell someone to speak to your hand, speak to the hand, and you can quench them. And then you can really wound somebody. You can grieve them in a certain way. And so, but we're related to God. So the grief is about relationship. So there's sin wounds him. But ultimately, this is the great message, is that there is victory. And the triumph of sin will come in the new covenant. God will execute justice once and for all. And he does. He does do that. At this point in time, it hasn't been executed yet. But at Calvary, justice will be executed once for all. That's the book of Hebrews. And that's the answer to Romans 6:23. The wages of sin is death. Satan didn't realize, maybe, what he was doing. He didn't realize. I told you it would be death, but I didn't tell you that it wouldn't have. It didn't. I could substitute the death of one for all, and that's what God did. Okay, you all right? Okay. All right, the case of chapter 2. All right, the essence of sin. If you're looking for an expression of why does Jeremiah have all these terrible things to say about the people, here is the essence of sin. It comes through here throughout this chapter of Jeremiah 2. Mishandling the word of God, twisting it. The leaders ignore the message from God, and the prophets speak falsely and walk carelessly. Okay, so the governmental leaders are ignoring God. The leaders in the temple, there's false prophets. They're speaking things that are not of God. And then they walk carelessly. They don't live a life that represents the ministry that they've been called to. So we see this here, verse 9. It says, I will bring charges against you and against your children's children. Is that the right verse? Yeah. Against your children's children, I will bring charges for past. I think I got the wrong verse there. Therefore I will bring, okay. Verse 8, the priest did not say, where is the Lord? And those who handle the law did not know me. The rulers transgressed against me. The prophets prophesied by Baal and walked after things that did not profit. So they prophesied according to the storm god or whatever. They spoke falsely and walked carelessly. All right, the next one. What are the results of the sins of a nation? Okay, there's the correction. Consequences bring correction. Your own wickedness will correct you. Okay, your own wickedness will correct. My own wickedness will correct me. My own wickedness will correct me. It's like the consequence leads to something. The other thing is backslidings reprove. The backslidings reprove. Something I do leaves me empty. It reproves me my need for God. But if there is no fear of the Lord, what happens, you'll notice, is bitterness and indifference. You ever met someone like that? If you meet people who talk about and they have no, you'll notice that there is a bitterness because life really can beat you up. Life without God can really beat you up and leave you empty. Like I said, there's this posting on CNN about this woman who's raising her children without God. And she can't understand like why the children in Connecticut were killed. Like why would God, if there really was a God, he would control us and not allow us to allow innocent children to be murdered. And if this is all there is, then, you can get very bitter about that. But if there's more than this, if there's something after this, which is what the Bible tells us, that there is more to this life than living and dying, that everyone lives forever somewhere, somehow, then, it's not, those kids were never going to see a dime of Social Security, and now they're in the arms of Jesus. I know that this is a cold way to calculating way to say that because it's tragic and it's painful. It really is. It's painful, but it is the heart of God. It is like there is pain in the heart of God. Like if God was a good God, he wouldn't allow pain. God is a good God. He feels the pain of people who are distant from him. So, all right. So now here's like the poor pictures of Judah. This is what Judah is defined as in chapter 2. An unfaithful wife. That's a common theme. You're going to see that in Ezekiel tonight too. Unfaithful wife, adulteress, that kind of thing. A wasted harvest, like a lot of seeds have been planted in you, but nothing has really grown. A dirty, cracked cistern. Like you've been made to hold the living water of God, but like everything just seeps out of you. And what's more is you're polluted. Like you're letting the water be polluted. You're stubborn animals. Like what's a stubborn animal? What's a good stubborn animal? A donkey is a good stubborn animal. And then wild, lustful animals. That's that's another one. A wild donkey that sniffs the wind in her desire. That's what Israel is like. She's like a wild donkey, always in heat, looking to mate with something, anything. That's what That's how God is communicating to Jeremiah to define what Judah has become. You are just looking to mate with something, just to keep yourself safe. Like you'll give yourself away. And then prisoners of war. That's the final part of it. Captivity removed from your place and put in another place by another empire. Your kingdom is gone. You have no throne anymore. You are under. So this is the thing. If you worship the gods of other nations, you will get the government of the gods of the other nation. All right? That's the thing. If you worship the gods of other nations, idolatry, you will get the government of that nation in your life. So that's the message there. Okay, now this is a painting of what happened during the siege. Babylon came and destroyed the temple, carried away the pieces of the temple and the people to captivity. So Jerusalem. So Jerusalem is defined here, like Jerusalem becomes the centerpiece of this destruction. And Jerusalem is still, like it's forecast in Scripture, Jerusalem is a snare to the nations. And it's really a place right now, like people are fighting over it. 3 different groups of people are fighting over it. Christians, Muslims, Jews all fight over the importance of what Jerusalem is. Christians are not so much interested in that. Believers understand that God has a place for Jerusalem in the future in the kingdom of Israel. But Jerusalem as a city is first mentioned in Judges 1:8. But here's the thing that you need to know, like a siege. You know what a siege is? How many know what a siege is? You know, like you throw, it's an old military way of starving out a group of people. Large armies would surround a city and not allow anybody out or anybody in. They couldn't come out to farm. They couldn't do that. So slowly people would die from famine, starvation, cannibalism. Those kind of things happened. So during Jerusalem, 27 sieges have been recorded. Like Jerusalem has been flattened and destroyed again and again and again. And there are 14 of these sieges listed in the Bible for us to understand. And there are 13 that are listed in other historical records. But like the siege number 7, siege number 14, and siege number 21 are the subjects of divine prophecy. The siege number 21 is the one that the Romans did in 70 A.D. And siege number 28 is to come. Like the number 7 is very significant in the Bible. So God does this again and again. And siege number 28 is forecast in Zechariah 14. Like all of the nations will be surrounding Jerusalem again, and then Jesus Christ and the posse from the sky will ride from heaven, and that will be the great final battle there. So that's the one that's to come. Siege number 28 is to come. So Jerusalem has been like this, has been done. This has been done to Jerusalem several times, this picture. Jerusalem has been destroyed as a city again and again, but it comes back. It comes back. All right? And then, what's the next part here? So here we see, this is a Roman piece of art, and this just shows what happened when they carried everything out of Jerusalem. This is what was his name? Can't remember the general's name that did that, but the general ran in there, when they finally flattened in 70 A.D., when they flattened Jerusalem that time, they carried all of these things away out to Rome, and so this picture was chiseled to show the triumph and the destruction of what happened, carrying these things away. All right. So Jesus and Jeremiah. Now we see these two connections here. Jesus said, Jeremiah 7, amend your ways and your doings, in this house which is called by my name has become a den of robbers. Like Jeremiah put the finger on it. Like you have made this a place of thievery. You are stealing from my people with the practices you're instituting. Luke 19, Jesus beheld the city and wept over it. And he said in this thing, my house should be a house of prayer, but you have made it a den of robbers. So here we see a big connection between Jesus and Jeremiah and their heart towards the city of Jerusalem and towards the real practice that should have been happening in the temple. The temple should have been a place of intimacy and relationship, a house of prayer for all nations. Israel really got it into their consciousness that, the superiority complex really got into the consciousness of Israel at some point. We are chosen people, we are special people, and the world should kiss our feet. That is really like the design that they have for themselves, because in Solomon's day, it was that way. People kept coming, bringing gifts and kissing, not really kissing, but really prostrating themselves to hear Solomon's wisdom from God and giving him great amounts of gold and apes and peacocks and all kinds of treasures and spices. And Israel has it in its consciousness that it should still be that way. But really the place that God has ordained Israel to be is a kingdom of priests for all the nations of the world, that people would understand who the real God is and that the people of Israel would lead them in praises and prayer to God, understanding that. So, but now, they've entered into another, a worldly form of religion. Okay, so 5 critical chapters here in Jeremiah. 1 Number one, it's the call of God. And I think this relates to us. So 5 critical chapters that really can relate to us. That's the way I want to see this. Because this is like, when you read this book, my design is that you would understand it as it applies to you, and you would learn, become a disciplined learner of the Bible, and become a disciple of the book. You know, it's not useful to me to talk these hours and just have you leave here and not become better ordered in your thinking processes, because your thinking will lead to your character, and your character will lead to your convictions, and your convictions will lead you to your conduct. So if you can believe the call of God for your life, as God defines it here, it says here, God put forth his hand, verse 9, touched my mouth, and the Lord said to me, and you could say, the Lord said to me, behold, I have put my words in your mouth. I have this day set you over the nations and over kingdoms, to root out and to pull down, to destroy and throw down, to build and to plant. This is our call, really. It was really big for Jeremiah himself at this point, and it's big for us. We have this mission. Yes? Okay, yeah. If you know if you learn these things for yourself, your thinking patterns will become organized according to truth. So thinking leads to character, character leads to conviction, and conviction leads to conduct. So, but it all starts with your thinking processes. If you have bad thoughts, if your thinking processes are not ordered to truth, then the convictions that you develop are not going to help you in your conduct. It's like it really does. As a man thinks in his heart, so he is. So whatever your heart holds, whatever your mind holds, those things are going to come out of you, and those are going to define, those are going to come out of me. Let me say that to me. Those are going to define me, you know. And this is like a life process, you know. Things that you do now may be okay, but later in life you may find yourself under a different sense of conviction, and God may lead you in a way that you don't know. And you don't know. God doesn't show you everything. It would just freak you out. If he was going to tell you that on January 4th, 2017, this is where you're going to be, this is what you're going to do, it would just freak your mind out. It was like, God can't do that to you. You know, he can't allow that to you. He just says, you follow me, and it'll all take care of itself. Okay, Jeremiah 17, the issue of the heart. Jeremiah 17:9, the human heart is deceitful and desperately wicked, and who can know it? I search it, I test the mind, even to give every man according to his ways, according to the fruit of his doings. And so the issue of the heart. And so this is it. It's deceitful, and that the human heart in itself, detached from the truth and an intimacy with the Spirit of God, is deceitful. And so you can't know it. You can't know it. When somebody tells you, let me share my heart with you, run from that person. Run from that person. I got something, No, I'm just, I realize, But, in this thing, people really do have hearts that are full of God's truth. And so you're going to get something awesome from them. The next chapter, very next chapter, 18, the hands of the potter. And this is, God makes vessels according to his design. Look, it says, O house of Israel, verse 6, can I not do with you as this potter? Look, as the clay is in the potter's hand, so are you in my hand, O house of Israel. So this is really, apply this to my life, apply this to your life. It's like you have been made a specific way, you have been designed a specific way, and God, as somebody keeps saying on TV after every football game he wins, God doesn't make any mistakes. Or I think he says, God makes no mistakes. But, he's big and fast, and we don't correct his grammar because he's in other places. But God doesn't make any mistakes. He fashioned you according to his design. So Israel is fashioned for a certain design. Israel, like I said, Israel has got it in its mind, and it still has it in its mind. And it's really heightened in the ultra-Orthodox element of Israel, the extreme element of people in Israel right now, that we are superior. We are superior, even though there was a group of people in Germany that thought themselves to be the superior ones, and what they did was totally try to eradicate the people of Israel. And so, but this superiority complex still exists in these people. Like we were made, God said we're going to be the head and not the tail. But if you go all the way back to the promises of Abraham, God said that that all nations you would be a blessing so that all nations will be blessed. Your blessing is not for you to be the most blessed. It would be that you would serve all nations as priests. Okay, Jeremiah 23, the false shepherds. That's another critical chapter. The false shepherds. Verse 16. Do not listen to the words of the prophets who prophesy to you. They make you worthless. They speak a vision of their own heart and not from the mouth of the Lord. You know, God cares for his people. He's very involved in dealing with those who speak wrongly. So like, well, I heard somebody and it just sounded like stupid and it would like really hurt somebody. Trust God. Trust God to like deal with that person in a certain point of time. Just trust. God knows how to deal with that. You just have to really trust God. He will take, people who take advantage and do that, it's like it looks like really like they're getting away with it. But believe me, God knows how to deal with false shepherds. And then the final critical chapter is 31. It's the new covenant part. It's the new covenant. This is the whole thing. Let me find it here. Sorry. It says here, verse 33, but this is the covenant that I will make. All right, now this is the whole thing. I want you to notice the activity, the subject of the sentence that's producing the action of the verb. God is the subject producing all of the actions of the verbs here. But this is the covenant that I will make after those days. There's coming a day when I will put my law in their minds. I will write it on their hearts, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. So this is the essence of the new covenant, verse 33. God will put, God will make, God will write. This is like the idea of the Holy Spirit in the heart. Jeremiah, the most tragic prophet, carries the most profound promise. All right, the tragic prophet talking about the sins of the people gives the profound promise that there's a day coming when this practices that you can't carry, the heavy burdens, the whole essence of your failure and your disaster is going to be taken away because you are going to long for my mercy, open your hearts, and I will write on your hearts and put in you a spirit that will cause you to follow me. So this is the essence of God doing something in the new heart with the new covenant. All right? Okay. All right. So those are the 5 critical chapters of Jeremiah. Okay, so we have this other book. And if you thought Jeremiah was dark, there's a book that's really the whole thing means Lamentations. And its Hebrew word is ekah here, and it means, how did this happen? Like Jeremiah sits down and writes these 5 chapters. They're highly organized, highly poetic. They're all constructions based on the Hebrew alphabet, 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet. So you notice that 1, 2, 4, and 5, the chapters of Lamentations, each have 22 verses. So that means that there's 1 verse for every letter of the Hebrew Bible. This is like A to Z of tragic. He's going Aleph to, what's the last letter? I'm sorry, Aleph to whatever the last letter is. I'm sorry, I should know that. He's going from the beginning to the end of the alphabet with a verse of, he's just outlining the tragedy, writing it down. And then the chapter 3 has 66 verses. That's 3 verses for every letter of the Hebrew. And usually the way these things go is like the verse begins with the letter of the alphabet. A is for apple, B is for boat, those kind of things. So A, he'll give it a lamentation, a B lamentation, and all the way through the Hebrew alphabet. So this construction is like very, it's important. it's important in his progression of thought. It's just like, remember, why is Jeremiah doing this? Well, he's lonely. He doesn't have a lot, bless you. He's lonely. He doesn't have a lot of people around. And, he just takes out the Hebrew alphabet and just starts writing these things down. I don't know. It's like some people journal for a lot of reasons, and what they empty out of themselves is important. So Jeremiah at some point started to write these the best way to describe them is like funeral dirges, like sad, sad songs. Like, sing me an old sad song, sing me an old sad song. It's like, isn't that what Taylor Swift does all the time? She sings old sad songs about, people she dumped or something like that, or people who dumped her. Which is it? She dumps people and then she sings about it? Is that the way it goes? I know you all know. Oh, you're so clever not to answer me. Anyway, I don't listen to it, but I get the sense from reading some headlines that, all right, whatever. Anyway, so these are sad songs. He's like constructing these sad songs, and they're important for us because it describes the condition of how, 586 comes. There is this last wave of what is it? Not hostages, but this last wave of removal. People, only the poor and only the poorest of the poor are left behind. All the smart people, all the rich people are taken to help out in Babylon. All the people who could be trouble have been executed. And some have been, some strong people have been put enslaved. And then the poorest of the poor and the people who really can't get out of their own way are left behind in a destroyed Jerusalem, a destroyed Israel, a destroyed Judah. And so now Jeremiah is like watching all this, sitting down, and he's sitting there, wow, look at that, wow. And he just goes through this funeral dirge, these funeral dirges to talk about that. All right. So it shows, really, expression, it shows the sorrow over the fall of Jerusalem historically. That's what he's giving, a historical account of how bad things have gotten in Jerusalem. Very descriptive, very mournful kind of language. And then doctrinally, it just really reinforces, like, I kept saying, it's like almost like I can't, I could see like the prophet like this. He's like, I kept telling them it was going to be this way. Why? Why didn't they listen to me? Why? Can you tell me, why didn't they listen to me? I told them it would be this way. I told them destruction was coming, and now it's here, and I have to look at all this. Why? And that's, really the way it is. He's expressing the truth. God means what he says. God gave Jeremiah a lot of messages, and now here he's cataloging. God, you gave me this message, and it happened. Why didn't they listen to me? You gave me this message, and it happened. Why didn't they listen to me? It's like, and so this is why Lamentations is in the middle of this, of our Bibles there. How do we see Christ in this? Jesus was a gentle man of sorrows. And, throughout Lamentations, we get an idea of some of the things that the prophet really endured in terms of afflictions, in terms of being seen as despicable. He was despised by his enemies. He was despised. Jeremiah had to endure this. Not a lot of people. Wasn't a lot of rap sessions when you got one guy. Not a lot of discussions. Him and Baruch. Baruch was there every now and then, and so the two of them could talk back and forth. And maybe there's some other people that we find out about in Jeremiah. Some other people that were like-minded with him. So we meet some people, but he's seen it. He's laughed at. He's a laughing stock. It's like, there's the guy who's always talking about how we're going to be taken to Babylon. He's been saying that for 42 years, and it still hasn't happened. There are the people from Greater Grace who say that Jesus Christ is coming back. They've been coming to the market for 14 years, and Jesus hasn't come back yet. It could be that's the way it goes, In other countries, it's more prevalent, maybe. it happens. Like, there's the person who says that Jesus is more than a prophet. And now look at him. He's been in prison and his family is like, can't, but he says that Jesus is the Son of God. They laugh at him. Lamentations, he talks about how he's smitten and insulted. But Jesus, the man of sorrows, Jeremiah, a man of sorrows, is faithful. He's faithful to the word of God. He's faithful to give the message of God. And God, like talked about at the beginning, there is something for this. There is some reward for this kind of dedication to the purpose and heart of God, to the message and the prophecies that God gives. It's there. It's there. We have to see it in the scriptures. We have to understand. We have to believe what Jesus tells us about what's to come. Next. All right, the cycle of laments goes sort of like this. The city as the mourning widow, though this is the first funeral dirge, the first sad, sad song. It's like this, the mourning widow, the city, how lonely sits the city that was once full of people. Like a widow. She was great among the nations, and now she has become a slave. That's the way he starts this story. And later on, he said, verse 8, Jerusalem has sinned gravely, therefore she has become vile. So she's a mourning widow. She's lamenting the fact that, all that she had, and remember the context here is that, really the name, the woman and the family name and the husband was really connected to her identity at this time. And now her identity is like her husband is dead and, everything about her identity is gone. The next part is the city as the weeping daughter. And that's how it starts. How the Lord has covered the daughter of Zion with the cloud in his anger. He cast down from heaven to the earth the beauty of Israel. The beauty of Israel. The Lord has swallowed up and not pitied. He has cut off in fierce anger every horn in Israel. Like all the things that made music and everything that made Jerusalem such a great place to be, God has cut it off. The next one is chapter 3. We're going to come back to this. This is the afflicted man. I'm a man. This is more of a self-centered kind of point. In the center of this, he speaks of himself more. I am the man who has seen affliction by the rod of his wrath. Lord, why have you let me see all of this? Like, why have you let me see this never-ending disaster movie? Why has this played itself out again and again and again and again? Why? Why have you let me see this? He has led me. He has made me walk in darkness and not in his light. He has turned his hand against me time and time again throughout the day. Now, this is the thing that you can look at in this and a book like the book of Job is like you can talk to God very frankly about how your life stinks. And that may be a mild word. You may have another word for it. And you can talk to God very directly like that. And don't think the king of the creator of all of this can handle your challenges to who he is. Like if you have a question, the best thing to do is to bring your complaint before the Lord. As it says, make your complaint known to him. He knows it already, but it's really good to hear you say it. And sometimes, I'm thinking that sometimes God really wants so much for us to talk to him, just to talk to him, just to speak to him, that we're left in situations that we complain about. Because it's the only time we talk to him. It's like, it's the only time we talk to him. And do you really think that God is like that? Yeah, I do. I think God is in all of the details of our life, and I think God really wants to hear from us. He really wants to he figures if I can just get them talking to me long enough, maybe they'll reach the end of what they have to say, and then we can start something new. You ever hear that? Talk it out? Does that work? Let's get into a room and talk it out. Those of you who have children, you'll do that sometimes. Let's go for a drive, and you just talk to me and tell me everything that's on your mind. Be careful, dads, especially with daughters. You never know what they're going to tell you. It's the truth. Anyway, all right. Chapter 4 is the city as tarnished gold. That's like it once was very valuable, precious, however you say that word. But he has changed it. Everything has been scattered. And then the last one, this is like maybe the most poignant one. It's like, God, it's like you've left them without a father. You've left them without a father. Okay, now let's use a principle I talked about earlier. Okay, use the Bible to help you understand the Bible. In the New Testament, we have a picture of the prodigal son, and he leaves. He leaves the covering of his father, takes his inheritance and goes spends it, and at a certain point, all of that money runs out. Just when he's talking about, leaving fatherlessness, when he's talking about fatherlessness, it's like Israel has left the covering of the father, not the father hasn't stopped considering the son or his daughters. Just like the prodigal went away and the father waited for him to return. There is no father-son relationship going on in that picture while he's away. The truth has now led to consequence, and the consequences that the son experienced led him to come back to his father. So that's the city as the fatherless child. Okay. But here, in the middle of this book, is maybe, perhaps, it is. It is like some of the most powerful words of comfort that we can find in the Bible. Right in the center of Lamentations, we have this. We have, Jeremiah is thinking about himself, and then he's like, how am I going to get over this, how am I going to stop this disaster movie playing itself over and over again in my consciousness? Jeremiah makes a decision, verse 21. This I recall to my mind, and now I have hope. And there you read it there. It's of the Lord's mercies we are not totally consumed. His compassions fail not. They are new every morning. Great is his faithfulness. The Lord is my portion, says my soul. Therefore I will hope in him. How do you endure a ministry of 46 years when people laugh at you, mock you, despise you? It's this. When the disaster movie that was playing out in front of him again and again got too overwhelming for him, he went in his mind to the place of grace, and he said, I have hope because the Lord's mercies are new every morning. So that's in the center of Lamentations, you have the most hopeful piece of information that you could have about who God is. Great is his faithfulness, eternal and never ending. All right, so what do we need to know about Jeremiah and Lamentations? Well, this is really the bottom lines right here. God does judge sin, and don't be surprised at it. There's mercy, there's grace, all of it for it, but God does judge sin. And, consequences, they happen. God raises his voice through his people. In the book of Revelation, there will be times when God is going to send angels through the skies to talk about coming to God. That's going to happen. But for the most part, God speaks to people and raises up prophets, and that's how God raises his voice. There's a loud guy down in the corner talking about destruction. His name is Jeremiah. That's God raising his voice. He's called him. He's shouting that trouble is coming. Will you listen to him? The preacher in my church is shouting things about me. God raises his voice through his people. And you should always know, just this may be the thing that would really change your life. And, if you have an intimate relationship with God and you understand that he's real and that there is a Holy Spirit in you that is grieved and quenched, then you understand that my bad decisions, my sin wound the Lord more than it wounds other people. It's like, don't think that God does not feel pain. It's like he feels it. He does. He feels it. He senses it. Grieve not the Spirit. Okay, why do we need to know? All right, national life. Is this any mystery to us? City life, national life suffers from the effects of sin. All right? You're paying for it, The effects of sin is really higher taxes, more military, more trouble. Like, so national life suffers because, why? There's a verse in Proverbs that says, a multitude of transgressions creates a multitude of princes. You wonder why there's so many rules and regulations and why there's so many bosses? An ever-expanding government is the sign of a society that is really riddled with sin. We just make up a law for everything that we think is wrong. This will fix you. We're just going to write it right there. Okay. Really? Okay. We ignore God's witness at our peril. That's another thing. Like when we hear God talking to us, we shouldn't ignore it. And no policy outmaneuvers the purpose of God. Like it doesn't matter what kind of policies they're instituting. If the purpose of God is for, a certain nation to be led into captivity, it doesn't matter what kind of policy you devise to try and stop that, God is going to accomplish his purpose. Okay, next, bottom line. Right, us now. What do we need to do? How can we help this? All right. So, like Jeremiah, trouble you see, meditate on the hope of God. And the next two, self-evident, I think, if you're a believer. Quench not the Spirit, grieve not the Spirit. Don't stop his influence in his life, and don't do things that really hurt him. The Spirit mourns for us. The Spirit mourns for us like a husband would mourn for his wife if she's removed from him. You mourn for that. You miss people. People die, they get hurt, you miss them. And so the Spirit has a relationship, so there's a deep grieving for that. You don't grieve for people. Like when Michael Jackson died, I don't think a lot of you grieved for him. You might have thought, wow, I'm not going to hear him sing One Bad Apple. No, that was Donny Osmond. Sorry. Wrong person. But you're not going to hear him sing ABC anymore. Oh, I can't believe it. He's gone. But I don't think you grieve for him the way that you would grieve for someone really close to you who got killed in a car accident. I think that's a grief, and you understand there was pain there. There's pain when you depart from the Spirit. Not the kind of pain that wants to punish you, but the kind of pain that longs for intimacy with you again. And hold fast to the branch. Everything about us is hanging on the branch that is Jesus Christ. Lastly, the heart of God longs for the right relationship in his people. And we are the issue, all right? If you're wondering what's wrong with any nation, we are the issue. The people of God are the issue. Our forgetfulness of God determines the direction of the nation. Everything that's going on today in Washington is like really, like we could sit there, I can't believe that, I can't believe that. Really? Really? Okay, where is the church in the picture? And you can't really do so much about it, maybe you think, but if you are living before God and you are a living testimony and intimacy with him, then you can affect something or someone around you. I've seen it happen in worldly offices, worldly departments. Daniel did it. We'll read about him, and that'll happen. Okay, so that's Jeremiah and Lamentations. You take a 10-minute break, and we'll come back and we'll look at Ezekiel. Okay?